Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into a stack of sources you shared, all focused on strategies to support and strengthen democracy.
Yeah, it's quite a collection. Think of this as like a shortcut to some key ideas floating around.
Ideas that could really shape how our political systems, even our economic ones, work. From, voting all the way to future tech.
Exactly. So our mission here is basically to pull out the most important insights and maybe some surprising bits from the material you gave us.
Right, just so you get a clear picture of what these different strategies are all about.
We'll hit on elections, the big questions around wealth and fairness.
Oh, yeah, that comes up a lot. And automation, too, how that links to economic security.
And finally, something crucial, transparency, especially with things like AI. It's a lot, but we'll cover the main points.
Okay, so where do the sources start? Seems like elections are a big focus, specifically primaries.
That's right. What's interesting in the material is the argument about primaries being potentially where your individual vote counts the most.
Also,
Well, the sources point out that turnout is usually lower in primaries compared to general elections. So fewer voters mean each vote can, swing things more easily.
so a smaller group of really engaged people can have a bigger impact on who even makes it to the main election.
Precisely. It's framed as a chance to pick candidates maybe more focused on, say, tackling corruption or economic inequality, ideas mentioned in the readings.
So getting involved earlier gives you more leverage, potentially. But the sources also talk about how hard it is for anyone not in the two big parties to even get on that final ballot.
Oh, absolutely. That's a major theme. The readings detail these pretty significant hurdles. Think about state ballot access laws.
Right, needing thousands and thousands of signatures just to be listed.
Exactly. And then there's the winner-take-all system. Only the top vote getter gets the seat, which,
Right.
well, the sources argue it makes people nervous about voting for a third party.
The whole wasted vote fear makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And you can't forget gerrymandering, either drawing district maps to basically pre-decide the outcome for one party.
Yeah, locking things in. So according to these sources, all these things together create pretty high walls around the two main parties.
Very high walls.
Well-
Now, this connects to another big theme in your sources, the link between political structures and economic power.
Okay, how so?
It brings up this fundamental question about wealth and fairness. The material revisits the whole debate around taxes, even mentioning Amendment 16.
The one that allows federal income tax.
Right, using that as the basis for potentially taxing higher incomes or wealth more progressively.
And the core tension, as presented in the material anyway, seems to be, can you have really concentrated wealth coexisting with a true one-person, one-vote system?
That's the nub of it. The sources suggest that kind of economic clout used for lobbying, campaign finance, influencing media can, well, distort the democratic process.
It makes you wonder. This ties into some economic ideas mentioned too, like a trickle-up economic.
Yeah, that's in there. It's the idea that boosting the financial health of the middle and lower classes actually drives the whole economy.
So things like higher wages, better safety nets, maybe the progressive taxes we just mentioned. The idea is their spending fuels demand across the board.
Exactly. It's a different focus from trickle down. And thinking about the future economy, this leads straight into the discussion on automation.
Ah, yes, AI, robotics.
Your sources link this directly to Universal Basic Income, UBI.
They do. The thinking goes, if automation changes work dramatically, maybe displaces a lot of jobs, we might need a different way to ensure basic economic security.
Like a safety net not tied directly to having a traditional job.
Sort of. It could mean rethinking what value even means in society if work changes that much. UBI is presented as one possible way to give everyone a basic income floor. The sources mention pilot programs like in Finland or Kenya testing this out.
Real-world experiments.
Yeah.
Okay, and this brings us to the tech side again, specifically transparency. This felt really critical in the readings, especially government use of AI.
Absolutely critical. And it's not just a techie detail. The call for things like open training data, open source AI models, even making the AI's decision-making parameters the weights public.
Yeah, that too. It's all framed as essential for accountability. How else do you check for bias? How do you build public trust? How do you stop it being misused, for shady deals or surveillance?
Good points. And it wasn't just about government either. The material kind of nudges you, the listener, to think about transparency in the AI you encounter day to day.
Right. Making informed choices becomes key. As this tech gets everywhere, it raises that big question. How do we make sure these powerful algorithms are actually understandable and, accountable to us?
So wrapping this up, What's the big takeaway from this deep dive into your sources? It seems like a multi-pronged approach to shoring up democracy.
Definitely layered.
Hmm.
From engaging early in elections like primaries to facing the power of big money, thinking ahead about automation's impact.
And demanding openness from new technologies like AI that are changing everything so fast.
Yeah. It really leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to chew on, doesn't it?
Which is,
As our world keeps changing so rapidly, economically, technologically, how do we actively make sure the systems designed to serve the public stay accountable to the public, to the many?
instead of being shaped by, hidden algorithms or the influence of a select few.
Exactly. How do we keep democracy responsive and transparent in the face of all this change? Something to consider.